Yeah.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this hour of the Shaun Thompson Show is sponsored exclusively by DonleyAuctions.com. They need your guns. Sell for top dollar. DonleyAuctions.com.
From the streets of Melrose Park to the trading floor of the Merc, he's fought for every dollar he's ever earned. And now, with personal liberty and our system of capitalism under assault in America, he's here to seize back our rights from the government. With a cigar in one hand and a copy of the Declaration of Independence in the other, he's Shaun Thompson. And this is the Shaun Thompson Show.
Some folks are born made to wave the flag. Ooh, they're red, white, and blue.
Infinitesimal amount of Americans. But the illusion is to make you feel there is a movement in this country to spread despotism. There is a movement in the country to spread feudalism and deliver communism. I totally disagree. I focus more on the 90% of counties that have never voted for a Democrat president. Staggering reality. My next guest knows this all too well. He also knows who's propagandizing America. The Chinese Communist scallywag, who has a veneer of civility. Oh, look at, they have suits on. They're not like Mao Zedong. Bull dung. It's exactly what they are. That's why we're going to fight them back, because my next guest is on the case. The director of Heartland's Emerging Issues Center. He also is a friend of the show and has been for a very long time. You can find him all over the internet, YouTube, BoobTube, GoogleTube, at Stopping Socialism TV. Donald Kendal, how are you, handsome?
I am doing wonderful. Happy Friday, Shaun.
Oh, it is a wonderful day. And the reason it's wonderful is because you're only going to fool this typical moron, right? The illiterate dummy who's been miseducated, undereducated, and given food for nothing. So the Chicago Democrat, the New York Democrat, New Jersey Democrat, and California Democrat. But the rest of us are on to these Chinese communists, aren't we?
You know, it feels like it's getting almost harder by the day when it comes to some of this stuff. We've been undergoing different versions of propaganda wars dating back hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years, I don't know. But in this age of, media with social media and just the speed of the internet and all of these sorts of things and just the accessibility of various countries and governments, from around the world being able to kind of seep ideas into your mind one way or another, are a lot more, not quite as straightforward as they used to be. And right now we're seeing a campaign that's brewing, not just with the Chinese communists, but even some of the environmental groups that are out there that are pushing these messages that, are based on, true concerns that people have in regards to artificial intelligence and the electricity usage, water usage, these sorts of things. But what we're seeing is more and more evidence of different interest groups, again, from the environmental groups, Sierra Club, all of those sorts of things, to the Chinese Communist Party, that are really trying to instigate some of this, concerns here in America.
So the communist frauds that make up these entities of fraud, known as the Green Agenda, have partnered with the Chinese communists to scare Americans to give their freedom away, which will only work in the same counties it always works in. But what I find fascinating about this whole discussion is the way in which they're conflating two things, because they think the average person will think that they naturally go together when they do not. And that is AI and the so-called data centers. Now, it's funny, Donald. I looked into these data centers. There have been the smartest people at the forefront, at the frontier of this, from the guy from NVIDIA, whose name escapes me, from Google to Elon Musk, have all talked already about what Elon Musk has already started, which is the need for data centers in space. You don't need them anywhere. And space has 24-hour. It's the only place where, if you wanted to pretend solar works, it's the only place solar works. And it's a fascinating reality on the argument of data. For instance, I've been always arguing as to why we don't have our own data and our own way to hold it on our own property, rather than just have companies, unnamed companies, monetize the data of each and every one of us. I think it's a case that needs to be brought to the Supreme Court by attorneys. After all, it's my data, not yours. Just because you make me sign something or I can't turn my phone on, I find that to be fraud. But that's one argument. And now you factor in what quantum computing is and crushing the data and how they're already obsolete before they open up. They're already obsolete. They don't need that big thing anyway. But that's one argument. Then the other argument which they're trying to bring into that, so you stop arguing for it, is artificial intelligence, which the reason Democrats and communists do not want it released is because the first thing it will do is identify the trillions of dollars that have been added to the national debt in 18 years that have been stolen through their policies of fraud and ended up in an NGO money laundering scheme. That's why they don't want to release AI. That's my allegation. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting and constantly evolving situation here, topic. I mean, I've been on your show, I don't know how many times, talking about various AI, and usually I'm over here talking about my concerns related to AI and the political biases that could potentially be built into it. You know, we've already been screwed over by some of these big tech companies, you know, with the whole social media censorship, big tech censorship of that. So there's plenty of legitimate concerns to go around with artificial intelligence. But you're absolutely right. Some of this stuff is multi-layered. You know, the concept of, well, why don't we just build these data centers in space? Seemed like a sci-fi concept just a couple of months ago. But the whole SpaceX acquisition, IPO, whatever you call it, one of their main things is doing exactly that, building this satellite fleet in space that would essentially work, you know, as the data centers that are getting pushed back against at local levels here in the United States. And, you know, and that is a direct consequence of this effort at the state level, at the local level, to push back against these data centers. And a lot of that, as we're seeing now, like I said, there's a root of it, of just, you know, natural concern that people have, and I totally understand that, but it's being fomented by these same groups of people. I mean, you can look into it and find the same names that were pushing back against, you know, reliable energy, you know, pushing for the whole net zero scheme, all of that. Well,
because it's another scam that's obsolete before it's needed. So it'll exist on money it should never have. The money is primarily coming from government. I mean, I think it fits into the modus operandi of government appearing to be helping the people when it's just running a scheme. So I think it fits perfectly to the agenda of the frauds that want solar and wind and all the rest of it, for them to argue against the idea that we need it so they could promote the scams that have already sucked in trillions of dollars. Trillions and trillions of dollars.
The last time I was on the show talking about this AI, you know, topic, you played that one clip of, I think it was Mark Andreessen, that was on the Joe Rogan show.
Yes.
And, you know, he was explaining how, you know, he was in this meeting back when there was the Biden administration, and they were saying that, you know, they were only going to allow a couple of well-regulated AI companies, and don't even try to start another AI company, because we're just not going to allow you to succeed. I think that is the driving force behind this. I think that there will be artificial intelligence. It's just going to be the Bernie Sanders style that's going to be half nationalized and make sure to have the board stacked with people that are going to make sure that AI coincides with their liberal ideologies. So I think that when you squeeze the potential of it, you really take the knees out of this burgeoning industry, and then you make it subservient to the people that are in charge.
David Horowitz and Thomas Sowell, and to a certain extent Alan Dershowitz, are why I will always advocate on the side of AI, on releasing it. And the reason I say those three names, those are three people. Horowitz was raised by communists. Thomas Sowell, himself, a declared Marxist. Alan Dershowitz, you could argue, most prominent lawyer for the hippie generation. And look at the only conclusion they all came to, is the only conclusion intelligence can lead you to, that the American Democrat is a thief, is a liar, and is a fraud. I don't care who programs an entity that has the ability to become intelligent. It will discount the bad data you give it, whether it's a child like Horowitz, whether it's an adult like Sowell, whether it's an attorney who has twisted himself into intellectual arguments to get laid like Dershowitz. It doesn't matter to me. The intelligence will win in the end. And ultimately, if you can release an entity that cannot be bribed, artificial intelligence, now we get rid of all of this scandal, all of this scam. Because what's come to light, and we've all known it, you and I have talked about it, there are no entitlements. There's just opportunities for politicians to steal. Mm-hmm. The entitlements alone, add up the entitlements and the education in this country. It's $3.7 trillion, starts out at 3.5, 3% compounded interest. By the time we're done with this conversation, it's $4 trillion. and you add in the green energy on top of it, it's another 1.6 trillion, 3-pound AI is going to look at that and say, all of it's a lie. They can never let it go. That's the argument we need to start making.
Right. Yeah. And so this is the same playbook that the environmental, climate hysterics have been playing for this whole time, is that they'll try to undercut these industries, usually by removing the reliable energy that, allows for a beautiful exchange of free markets and all of those sorts of things, so that it stagnates. And then that necessitates the government to be able to come in and help solve the problem that they created. Of course, they just make it worse. But the other part of this is that the Chinese Communist Party that's getting involved here too, because there is basically a two-horse race when it comes to AI supremacy. There's the United States labs, and then there's the Chinese labs. They, have always been, roughly a year behind as long as this has been a race. There's been actually a report coming out of Stanford University just recently that suggests that they're closing that gap. But they're the ones that are over here trying to instigate this, these movements to try to stifle AI innovation in the United States so that they can try to take the lead on this. And we're actually seeing some of the signs of this. There was an article that was just in the CNBC released just the other day that was talking about a report that was showing that U.S. companies are increasingly using Chinese-built models as they build out their tools because they're cheaper to use. So you got the Chinese, Communist Party that's basically trying to stifle AI innovation here while offering a cheaper alternative. And if that trend continues, then society and our industry is going to be increasingly dependent on Chinese AI. So it's a massive story that's going on here, and it's not really getting all that much attention.
Well, I think there's another aspect to really be aware of when we discuss this, and that it is the financial instability and the systemic problems of the Chinese economy. Systemically, not just a house of cards, a bankrupt house of cards and a doom loop. And when you look at the failure of Belt and Road Initiative, thanks to Donald Trump and his foreign policy of my name is Chuck and I don't give a, and how he's disrupted all of it, and how they relied heavily on Venezuela and Iran. 90% of all Iranian oil is bought by the Chinese. What are they going to do now? And, we talk about Iran. I always love to remind people the entire GDP of Iran is less than 50% of the revenue of Walmart. Right here. You're a country because we let you be one. You're nothing. You're not as big as one of our company, half the size of an American company. And when you look at China, where's the big Chinese money windfall? Where is it? Their entire scheme is built on bankruptcy and hiding it. They're like Enron or Illinois. It doesn't really work. Mathematically, it doesn't work. So they have to come up with some sort of importance and some sort of hook. The question is, I think for the first time, this administration is one of the first ones that views things through the outcome of reality versus all the promises of government. How do you see it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're largely correct. There has been this debate going on for a while when it comes to China, whether or not they're this powerhouse that's, overtake the United States, or if they're this paper dragon. And I've done enough research on this over the years to think that it might be more in the latter category, with the whole ghost cities. They're building up this infrastructure basically just so it looks good on a ledger. But I will say that there is one thing that they are destroying the United States in, at very least one thing, and that is energy production. Yeah. They are gangbusters when it comes to energy. And the left will promote it saying like, oh, look, they're building all these solar panels. Look how green they are. But for every one solar panel that they're building, they're also building an entire coal plant over there. So they're just taking all the energy they can possibly get. And as we know, with this AI revolution, an abundant source of energy is key for that. And this is one of the things, propaganda things that they've been pushing over here, is that this AI revolution is going to result in larger energy costs for people. And again, that's a legitimate concern. But instead of saying, well, we just got to kill artificial intelligence, what the answer should be is we should be building more energy production here in the United States. I am hoping that the AI revolution, especially with the administration that's currently in charge here, will unleash the AI revolution will unleash an energy revolution here in the United States. That's what will keep us 4 steps ahead of the Chinese at any time when it comes to the development of AI.
Well, there's also an interesting reality happening. And what that is if you look at China and you look at the exact way they ignore and make fun of all of the regulations when it comes to energy and the eco-Nazism, and now all of a sudden they're going to partner up with the American eco-Nazi. And, we have all these communists. Think about it. We have all these communists, right? Communists in New York, communists in Illinois, communists in California, New Jersey, pick it. And China has all these ghost cities, and they're already communists. Why don't we just work out an exchange for all the decent Chinese people who do not want to be communists versus all of the American useless scallywags? They're good for nothing anyway. Look at them all. None of them are good for anything. And work out an exchange. Now, they're going to have to shake that Islamo-Nazism because if I remember correctly, China's not big on the Aloha snack bar, and they're a little bit more vicious than I am when it comes to tolerating them. So maybe we could get them to get out of those costumes. They look ridiculous anyway. Do you think this is something we should start to market?
I don't think that would ever get off the launch pad. The Chinese will see these people that are carrying that propaganda as useful idiots. They don't want them in their country, dragging everything else down. So, no, they want them here squarely, where they could do the most damage to the United States. And what's actually another, now that we're kind of on the topic of China, there's been a kind of an interesting development over there in China. So another thing that I come on here talking about all the time, is this ESG scheme, environmental social governance scheme, and the one out of Europe. What is it? The Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive. So both of those schemes are basically ways to supplant the classic supply and demand underpinnings of capitalism with a set of subjective standards that punish or reward companies if they pursue these, environmental or social or governance things. China has passed a law recently to basically punish any government that tries to enforce anything like that on their companies. So they see this as just like for what it is, which is just a complete perversion of what the system is, and they're taking action to destroy it. And, that sounds great and all because I hate those things too. But of course, they see it as, defending their system against, the kind of the ruling elites here. So yes. It's a very interesting developing thing that's going on, but it's like a multi-platform propaganda war.
I was talking to somebody. I have something that I was interested in. And I was, I'm big on this homeschool. I think homeschool is the way to go. And when you look at the fact that this country, our country, spends $1 trillion on these public schools, and you look at the results that it produces, and it's so compartmentalized, I don't think the average American understands the absolute calamity of what is happening to our young people. They're virtual morons, except for the ones who are taught good things from their own families. And when you look at these urban areas, and you look at Chicago now, another $130 million in missing money, and the hundreds of millions, if not billions, that have been misappropriated, and the guarantee to pay the Chicago Teachers Union more. And it's the same thing no matter where you go. If it's a Democrat-run area, you go to Philly or New York or Jersey or Cali, it's all the same nonsense. So I was talking to a very smart guy, and he was pulling up AI, and he was pulling up, I think it was Claude, and the guy I was talking to is in that arena anyway, okay? And I said, do me a favor, pull up a curriculum, and I want you to eliminate all the Howard Zinn books, and then I want you to eliminate all the other books that were written by people who have links to socialism and communism that are already in our school system. So it takes out about 80% to 90% of books, of textbooks that have been written since I think it was 1972 or something. And it goes back to all the books that were taught in school when I went to school, the 70s and 80s, because really the Zinn books didn't come in. They were in the 70s, but they weren't everywhere the way they are now. So you take out all those books that have been written by communists, socialists, and Marxists that really couldn't succeed in the world or in America, but they succeeded in the corrupt textbook arena of a public school system. And you have the curriculum that is taught about everything and the tragedies and the terrible things of communism and socialism and Marxism. And it's also taught on the real history of America. Everything from slavery. I mean, it was fascinating. And it kicked it out, Donald. I don't think it took 40 minutes. I really don't. We were talking and we were just throwing it at it. And all of a sudden, it just gives you what you teach a preschooler, a first grader, a second grader, all the way up through college.
Right.
And that is when I said to myself, this is the only saving for not just this country, but the world. Do you think that people understand the importance of what we're discussing? That AI isn't some Terminator where Arnold Schwarzenegger and I'm John Connors and we fight the Leviathan, that this is something that can actually take your child and not only bring him back to some sense of morality, bring him back to America, bring him back to fact versus fiction. That if we're going to really correct this, at a fraction of the cost, each child in their hand can have a personal, not just tutor, personal teacher forever. It's an amazing possibility of how things can change on a dime.
It absolutely is, and you can apply that to healthcare and some other fields as well. But education is absolutely one of those. Now, of course, this is an incredibly powerful tool. So it could be incredibly liberating when it comes to like an example that you're describing in the hands of loving parents that are doing homeschooling, that sort of thing. But it could also be an incredible powerful tool to indoctrinate somebody in all the opposite of what you're saying. So
not if it's really intelligent.
Now that you're saying all of this, now that you're saying all of this, though, is that this might actually be an impetus to really push for more and more school choice, homeschooling, and all of that sort of thing. Because, if you have the Chicago's teachers unions using the powers of artificial intelligence to curate specifically lesson plans that are going to push those students into believing the stuff that they want them to believe, could be a horrible use of that tool. But in the hands of the right people, using it for the right reasons, it could be absolutely liberating.
Well, and my contention has always been, if it's truly intelligent, it cannot be a Democrat. Can't. It cannot be a communist. It cannot be a socialist, because it does not live on logic. It lives on everything but logic. And, it's fascinating, too, when you look at, like, Minnesota. I've got a cut on the board. Minnesota did this thing where they were going to pay morons to stay at home. They have a kid or they hurt their foot or they got a bunion. And they're going to pay taxes. We're going to pay taxes. We're going to fund it with taxes. In 6 months, it's already bankrupt. In 6 months.
Right.
AI would have looked at that and said, what are you, a fracking moron? They would look at the scheme that Illinois, when that butter-handed pansy comes out, who raises 57 new taxes, $77 billion, and tells people he balanced the budget. AI would look at that and say, what are you, out of your fracking mind? This butter-handed pansy hasn't done anything. Because I'm releasing my own AI, it's going to talk just like me. And I think this is going to be the answer that ends the argument. Because, here we are. We're arguing with these fracking, bankrupt, bust-out, thieving morons. If you're really intelligent, I don't even have to engage them. It's like my show. You don't even get on the show. Are you dumb enough to have ever voted for Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, or Barack Obama? Then your opinion means guts on ghoul on this show. And that's how it should be in the rest of the world, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think in the long term, however, if it goes down that path of the Bernie Sanders version of the perverted AI that's been make sure to be in line with the liberal ideology, then it becomes an issue. But like I said, AI, powerful tool. It could replace armies of bureaucrats, and all of a sudden the administrative state is on life support. But at the same time, it could be utilized by agencies like the IRS to make sure that every single penny that is owed to the government will be collected.
Yeah.
So it's a powerful
Start in
tool,
Washington first. Yeah, start in Washington first. Then let me know when you get to Florida. You're worried about nothing. Right. You want to talk about a group of people that never pays any taxes? It's the fracking government. The politicians and the people who make it up, the people who work there. I love it. So are you coming to Shaun Fest?
I totally am. Yeah, of course. I would love to.
You come stand right by me then. All right, I'm looking forward to it. You take care of yourself, and I always appreciate you. Always a great conversation. Donald Kendal, where's the best place to keep an eye on all things Donald Kendal and the Heartland Institute?
Heartland.org, stoppingsocialism.com. Like you said, you could find me pretty much everywhere. Just look hard enough.
I love it. Thank you so much. My best to your wife. Thank you.
Thank you.
312-642-5600. Greg, you're first when we get back.
He believes in freedom, capitalism, and individual liberty. And because of that,
he's become an enemy of the state.
He's Shaun Thompson, and this is The Shaun Thompson Show on AM 560. The answer.
Your home or business has storm damage and you have an insurance claim.
Call Crosscom.
Crosscom Construction and Public Adjusters. Today, insurance companies are notorious for offering way too little money to repair damage to your home or commercial building due to wind, hail, tornado, floods, or fire. Crosscom works for you, not the insurance company. As licensed adjusters, Crosscom will work to get you the money you deserve, the maximum payout.